Hello, and thank you for joining us. Where are each of you? Radu, you're in Paris?
Yes, I'm in Paris as I'm preparing a new shoot of a film which is made between Romania and France. So unfortunately, I couldn't be there with you, but thank you so much for all the kindness and the invitation to you, to Denis Lim, to the festival, etc.
We're so thrilled to have you represented here in two films and now in this frenzy of TikToks. And Andrei, where are you joining us from?
Hello, I'm joining you from near Bucharest. It's a small village called
Great.
Balotest.
Okay,
Yes.
so we just watched Little Poems and Prose, and I think our stomachs are aching from laughing. That was really quite splendid. So thank you for that. Um, I thought, okay, Radu, can I start by asking you about the title?
Oh, sure. It's of course it's a reference to Baudelaire's little poems in prose, and it's not ironical actually because one of the things that I discussed with Andrei over the months when we prepared this was the fact that there is a certain brute art brute or poetry of some sorts in all this. This was the idea at some point. We actually, I think, Andrei, we oscillated between this title or we wanted also to call it Zero for Digital Conduct in an homage to Jean Vigo. So it's like that.
Okay. And Andrei, is it correct that you collect TikToks and you archive and study them? That's
Yeah, yes, part of it is correct. I started watching TikToks during the elections in Romania. Probably, I don't know if you heard, but in December we were supposed to have elections for presidential elections. And by a big surprise, it was a big surprise that the candidate that came into the first place in the first tour of the elections, in the first round of the elections, it was somebody that the majority of the population, we never heard of him. So this is how I actually started to be interested in TikTok because he was promoted on TikTok. So this is how he came in the first place in the first round, because people who voted for him mostly found out about him on TikTok. So yeah, so I was very curious to, like many other people like me in Romania, we were very curious to understand a little bit the phenomenon and to see, how the political propaganda was being conducted. But in the process, I really discovered that this is something really vivid and with many, how can I say, levels about it. That it's not only, I don't know, interesting for political reasons or for, I don't know, but for many other reasons, including aesthetical reasons. So yes, I started to collect, when you are on TikTok, if you give love, how can I say, if you give heart to a certain video, it
like,
automatically
yeah.
like a like, but it's like a heart, it's a symbol for heart. It enters in your archive. So this is how I collected them. But of course, I started to, I don't know, to make small, like, yeah, uh, programs every night in my stories, in my Facebook and Instagram stories, and I found with big surprise that a lot of people watched them during the elections, especially because you know that the first campaign of elections was postponed for 6 months. So during that period, we were all very, paying attention to this kind of things. Yeah.
And I mean, what is your reflection on why TikTok has been so politically influential in Romania?
Well, I
You are.
guess
Yeah.
there's several reasons. First of all, because it's somehow, I mean, that's a very complicated discussion, I think, but a few reasons are the fact that it was easy, the algorithm makes it easier to use these kind of propaganda materials if you pay for them, and it was a big Russian interference into that. And because a lot of people, especially in Romania, and also because many Romanians work abroad, so everybody has relatives in Romania, or the ones in Romania have relatives abroad, so they communicate a lot on smartphones. So a lot of people, even in a rural area or very poor area, have a smartphone and internet, and they communicate. So there's a big culture around this platform for a lot of people that can be tried to be easily manipulated. So that's at least one of my interpretations. I don't know if Andrei has another one.
Yeah, but I was thinking, Radu, that maybe there are, of course, these are important reasons, but maybe also because I think in the past years in Romania, our governments didn't pay very much attention to education, for example, and to culture.
Yeah,
Like
true.
statistically, it's not something subjective, according to the Eurostat's polls, the European Union polls, we are, if not on the last place, very close to the last on each possible account related to investment in education, in culture, in research. So I think there are a lot of, a lot of young people. I think 1/4 of the young people in Romania, they neither work nor study, neither they study, so they do nothing. So I think there are a lot of causes actually for this.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
And can you both talk about how you went about selecting TikToks for this particular collage? Because it seems to me overwhelming. Like the thing about TikTok, the thing about social media is this endless scroll, this like absolute glut that increases tenfold every day. So how do what were you looking for, and how did you compose this collage?
Well, contrary to Andrei, I watch a lot of TikTok, and actually much. Oh, I think I started like 6 or 7 years ago, when my kid, who was like 13 at the time, was interested in Andrew Tate.
Mm.
So I wanted to know what it's about, and I got a bit scared. And then I made a TikTok account, and all of a sudden I got hooked, because what you discover there, I mean, apart from all the trash, but also sometimes including in these things which can be considered trash, and this is I discussed with Andrei to organize these materials. I think there are 2 or 3 things. First of all, there's a documentary quality in like in a traditional sense of documentary, anthropological, sociological qualities that this, the multiplicity of cameras offer. There's people who are filming their own life, private life, basically every day, or I don't know, 10 times every day. It's like 1 million Jonas Mekas is, of course, without maybe his great talent and great sensibility, but still there's pieces like that. Then there is this relation, I think, that we try to make also here and there with the beginning of cinema. You have the feeling of people filming things very short, very a little bit like Lumiere, like if Lumiere had a smartphone and not a big camera with film. And then I think there's another aspect that I was interested. Well, of course the performative aspect, and I think Andrei can speak because he curated also a program with dance TikTok videos. Is this performing aspect, which I think is very interesting, which is something between documentary and, of course, fiction. And I think there's a relation which I'm very, very much interested in, or a kind of sensibility or sensitivity, I don't know how to say it, in many of these video, which connects it with a part, at least, of the historical avant-gardes, meaning a kind of a dumbness or a kind of idiocy that is so much pushed that it becomes something else. So when you see something like that, you can think of Fluxus movement, you can think of Dadaism, you can think of Viennese actionism, of all these great movements of historical avant-gardes, and all of a sudden you can see them, this sensibility reenacted sometimes with more imagination, sometimes with less, sometimes very striking, sometimes really, really nasty. But you see these things reenacted by people, and the other one, and I finish with this, is the cinematic. I mean, what is cinematic? It's whenever I think of what is cinema, I remember, the last words of Griffith saying how leaves that cinema can show how leaves move in a tree, something like that. And I think it's something truth here, and some of this because of a certain talent of people or a certain happening or something has this quality. They are very, very, very cinematic, many of them, beautifully from a rhythmical point of view, from the composition point of view, from the contrast of colors, all these things which makes cinema important and beautiful for us. You can find in different ways and sometimes really striking in these videos, I think.
How many people here watched Dracula at the festival? Okay, so there's the
I
Fluxus.
apologize.
You make that Fluxus reference in that too. I've asked you this before, but if you say that this is all cinematic, I guess how do you what is cinema for you? And don't say everything is cinema because you've said that before.
For me or for Andrei?
For you, and then I'll come to Andrei. I mean, what is distinctive about, what does the word cinematic mean to you?
Well, I think that the concept is in crisis, and the last chapter we shown here is mostly videos using different kinds of AI or VFX or graphics of sorts, because as I said, it's not only this thing related with movement and whatever, but for me, what cinema, if I have to really, really narrow it down, means two things: this process of recording and seeing parts of reality. It doesn't matter if it's documentary or fictional reality, recorded, and then it's montage, is the way you put together things to create something new. And of course, this, like Eisenstein, would be the main reference, of course. So this you can find if you're interested in this and not in storytelling or money or formats like, I don't know, VistaVision or whatever, like one battle after another and all these kind of great things, of course. Then you can find this, like Eisenstein used to find cinema in two lines in a poetry or in a collage from a newspaper or in how two objects are placed one next to another in the street, etc., etc. So I try. Unfortunately, I have to come back to everything is cinema, but not because it is cinema, but because it can be seen through a frame that makes it cinematic, more or less. And here I think we've chosen things which have all these qualities from our point of view, at least.
That makes a lot of sense. Andrei, do you want to speak about the curation?
Yes, of course. I was just wanting to react to what Radu just said, if it's possible, just briefly, because I agree with everything he said. It's just that I was thinking that for me, this is not cinema, and this is like the TikToks. They are not cinema, at least as an institution, because for me, cinema is very much related to capital, to money, you need money. It's a complicated field to I don't know, to affirm yourself. While here, I think this is complete democracy in a way. Like, of course, people need a phone, but the majority of even in Romania, no, Romania is not the richest country. Even people, as you saw in the villages, they have phones. So you need a phone and internet, and that's it. And they do videos, they put them online, and some of them get to tens of millions of views. So more probably than many of the filmmakers or contemporary filmmakers might hope they will ever achieve with their films. So in a way, No, but it's not, quantity, it's not, it's not so important. I'm just saying that in a way, it's because, of course, I used to be, I don't know, snobbish about this kind of platforms. And there are still a lot of people who don't even want to look at them. But when you think about it, there are more people in the world that watch these videos than, I don't know, maybe Spielberg's films and the most important series. So you cannot ignore them, even if, I don't know, we cannot like them. I don't know, we can disconsider them, but I think at this point it's very complicated to just ignore them as a phenomenon in a way. So yeah, for me this is at the moment I think the most vivid medium with good and bad parts. I don't know, it's not only good parts, but it's something that I still don't know exactly how to figure it out completely. So this is why it really puzzles me and it preoccupies me. And I agree with Radu very much that I'm a big, I'm very interested in the early cinema. So it resembles a lot, even, I don't know, even the curatorial process in a way, in the early cinema, the exhibitors were the most, I don't know, important in the process because they made the experience for the audience. They sometimes they interfered, of course, in the films. They added live elements, etc. So in a way, we did this a little bit. No, Radu, I mean, we didn't add live or commentaries or anything else, but sometimes we shortened a little bit the clips. I don't know. Sometimes, as you saw, there were the credits in the end. Most of the times there weren't. And of course, to reply to your question about the way we curated, I think if I remember correctly that I gave Radu like hundreds of videos, no Radu, and you watched them, and you came with a short list. And I think we went one day together with Catalin. This me, I think you went another time, so
Yeah, yeah. I knew, I,
twice.
knew- I knew some of them. I knew some of the
Yeah,
stars.
yeah,
Like
of
there's
course.
the old guy who says I did coke and dance. Mihai Nat is a star,
Hmm.
and yeah,
Yeah, and
in,
others. And no, and we just structured them at your proposal in five, no, in five
yeah,
chapters,
yeah.
each
From
of
the most
them.
documentary to the most
Yeah,
fictional, let's say,
exactly, exactly. And
roughly.
that was it. The other everything else was more or less intuitive, no?
Yeah, yeah. Well, now when you say it's not cinema because cinema is rated with money, here I have a little bit of a step back because, of course, it's not institutionalized cinema if you want. But I don't think cinema has to do only with money. There's amateur cinemas. There's all kind of other cinema, experimental cinema that was not so much related. It is true that, of course, nowadays in the industry, I mean, even in Europe or even in Romania, not to mention, of course, United States. I think a big producer or a big festival, well, except from for New York Film Festival, which invited us to show this here, but still, otherwise people would stay away. And usually when we speak about that, I encountered, and I think here your intuition is correct, a kind of puzzled look when I say to people my age or even older filmmakers or producers or critics that I watch TikToks, they somehow, first of all, they say, "Really, are you really watching this?" And then there's a kind of a politeful silence around that. Yeah.
Hmm. I imagine, yeah.
Well,
Although the level of creativity is something interesting that you discover because I think, and that this is really really a new phenomenon because you know how creativity can work. I don't know, with children. You know how children can draw. You know how people can write text like popular
Yeah.
poetry or popular music, folk music, whatever. These are all phenomenons. And let's not forget the great anthology that Harry Smith did of folk music. So already there's big things like that, but we never knew until now, I think, how normal people, I mean by that, who are not filmmakers
Professionals.
of
Mhm.
profession, and maybe they don't have even the desires to become not even amateur filmmakers, but still how much kind of creativity can exist in some. Of course, now we put them. You can have one guy who has one day one brilliant idea, makes a 20 seconds great TikTok video, and that's it for his or her whole life. Doesn't matter. But sometimes there's a lot of creativity or desire to perform, or really real talent for mise-en-scène, real talent for a certain type of cinematic humor, for a certain type of dramaturgy, for a certain type of performing in front of a camera, which I think it's quite striking how much it is actually, how many people like uh,
Mhm.
not only to paint or to draw like kids, or to write a poem when they are in love,
Mhm.
but to make a film, to express
Mhm.
them through a film, a certain
Mhm.
kind of film or a video, how you want to call it. For me, it's the same.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
were one of you going to say something, Andre?
I just wanted to add something short about to what Radu was saying. And I completely agree with what he just said. That for me, it's also, and I think we tried to put this into the program. It's also very touching. I don't know when the videos, like for example, the one with the woman in the village that films her hands who are in the trees, or the birthday party filmed by the son with his family. Uh, I don't know this intimacy that some of these clips. I don't know, propose uh, in certain mediums or in certain contexts that professional filmmakers, even if they would go and stay there for, I don't know, 10 years with the characters, I don't think they would, or very hard they would manage to get that kind of, I don't know, that kind of honesty from the people. It's very different when they show their own everyday lives
Mm.
compared to the situation when an exterior person would get there. So I'm not saying it's worse, it's better or worse. It's just that it's very different, and it's something that very rarely in professional cinema you get to see. And in general, when you get to see it, it's not so good most of the times, because they are trying to do professional cinema if they are amateurs. And I don't know, at a certain point, many of them, when they do feature documentaries, etc., they get a little too conventional. While here, because it's very brief, like Radu said, it's like small glimpses of beauty, like to
Mm.
quote Mekas again. It's just I don't know. It's just small pieces, small fragments that are not part of any other construction in a way.
Mm. Um, so in the essay that we handed out copies of your program notes, so everyone has a copy. And you talk about how you've structured little poems and prose in these chapters that roughly correspond to documentary, performative, camp, dance and music, and then AI generated images. I was curious about how you came
Okay.
up, with these categories, and again, the specific kind of selection and sequencing. And the reason I'm interested in that is that the way in which being on TikTok or social media to me is different from cinema is the experience of the feed, the scroll, where you keep scrolling and the algorithm keeps feeding you something else depending on what it thinks you want. And so it feels like this experience of an eternal present. But when you present it in this curated sequenced way, you build a narrative, you experience like the passage of time, the development of an idea. To me, that seems like a pretty, I mean, when you look at an individual TikTok, it can seem like early cinema of attractions, but I think time is such an important part of the experience of cinema. And so I'm curious how you were thinking about kind of structuring these TikToks into something that felt like, I mean, we showed it in a cinema, that felt, and it was very engaging and it took us from one place to the other. So how you were thinking about sequencing it and
Well, I think it was roughly my proposal to structure them somehow, because sure, there's one thing to watch. You can watch endlessly this the how the algorithm is organizing them for you. And at some point, because I looked a lot when I did my other film from 2 years ago, Do Not Expect Much from the End of the World, and I used a little bit of these TikToks, and I watched a lot of women dancing and singing, actually kind of vulgar song, kind of horny women dancing or something like that. And after I saw 10 of these, then even now, if I open the TikTok, it's this kind of it's very very addictive. The algorithm is profiling you somehow wrongly and gives you what you wanted. So actually, we didn't want to replicate the experience of watching a TikTok thing, but to extract this and to at some point, I think Andrei told me, isn't it too didactic? It's like we do it for people who never watched the TikTok properly. And I said, well, maybe it is didactic, but I prefer it to offer it like this. Well, it's not like a commercial for TikToks, but to show there are different directions, and of course one can find even more, and of course some overlap. So this is how I said what is interesting for us, and we discussed, and we discovered these lines that you have in these program notes. So this is how we started, from the most documentary ones to going through more fictionalized or performing or dance to the most fictional ones, which are the TikToks, showing that the AI images, showing that these TikToks can accommodate all kinds of aesthetic or political or creative directions. So I think there's a potential. It was the desire not to show TikTok reels, but to show the potentialities for good. I think, of course, most of these platforms have a lot of horrible sides, but I think in all this, and of course TikTok can disappear and another one or another technology appears, but I am a strong believer that there's potentialities in all this, like in all technologies, that can be used for better, for creativity. And this is why I would really love everybody but well, as Andrei said, Romanian education is destroyed, to have a visual education or film education or more education. And I'm sure that the TikToks will get even more creative or even more interesting, and not lose from this. I don't know if Andrei wants to add something.
Maybe yes. About the curation. No, you asked about how we chose the films, and I wanted to add something about what I said earlier about the period of elections. So I have to say that, as you said, the way TikTok shows you the videos depends on what you like or what you tend to watch more. So this is how it polishes your feed. So during the elections, of course, I was more interested on TikTok to see the points of view of people who are not on the same political side as me, because I knew those people's arguments. So I liked all the clips that were not, on my side. So this is how little by little I got to, and of course in the beginning I was a little bit, upset, and I was not okay with them because I thought they were destroying the country with their option, whatever. They were voting for a fascist, basically. Okay,
But they know better than us because they elected one.
Yeah. Anyway, and little by little through this, I because the feed started not to show me only political stuff, also this kind of videos. I started to emphasize. I started to in a way to have access to another kind of access to alterity, to a certain alterity that I wouldn't, I wouldn't have context to meet for a coffee in Bucharest or in another place where I have to work. And I think that the majority of, I don't know, now if people in the audience would get to their TikTok after the screening, I'm sure they wouldn't get this kind of videos immediately. So they would have a completely different experience. So I think the fact that we started from this kind of videos is very important, no, Radu, in the final experience that you got to see, because of course even in Romania there are a lot of people middle class, I don't know, educated, who make I don't know, all kinds of videos.
But actually, I think remember that we let out a lot of these political videos, which were very, very local and already
Yes,
anyway somehow passé.
dated. Yeah.
But also, I think what's interesting about TikTok versus Instagram, if you want to speak about this platform, is like Instagram is used more by people with from a different, let's say, middle class or
Yeah.
with more good taste, if you want. While TikTok is reserved usually for lower classes and people consider not having good taste, and I think this is why we like it more than Instagram. You know, I mean. And, you have this kind of you don't really have this kind the rough things or the vulgar things on TikTok. You rarely see on Instagram. On Instagram you can see more beautiful things, sunsets, all this kind of kitsch. Actually, Instagram is a lot for kitsch, of course, not only but TikTok is really, really rough and really, really dirty somehow in all the directions of the world. I think it's really, really sometimes, and was also another kind of striking thing when I saw all these of vulgar people, the level of vulgarity. I mean, people accuse my films of being vulgar,
Yeah.
but it's unbelievable. I'm one of the most well-educated people compared with what's on TikTok.
Well, your films are sacred and profane, so.
Yes, I don't know, but
Um,
it's somehow shocking to see. But it's also something, after the 1989 revolution, the proof of freedom was the first films. I mean, one of the proof of freedom was the first films of Lucian Pintilie or Mircea Daneliuc, who were full of vulgarity. So I think there's something in expressing vulgarity that has to do with freedom. So whenever a new thing comes, people test it somehow or feel the desire to test the freedom of it by being vulgar or doing vulgar things. And all of a sudden you discover you can say, well, fuck you, or I want to fuck with 20 horny women or whatever, and nobody's censoring you. So you say, oh, that's great. It's really freedom here in a certain way. That's a speculation, but I think
no,
I'm not.
I think you're onto something. Actually, when I was watching one battle after another, I was noticing how people were laughing even when just like when a character cursed. I mean, just people still laugh in a cinema when someone on screen says the F word emphatically. And there is some kind of like rush thrill we feel of, some kind of liberatory thrill we feel with vulgarity. I mean, that's things become vulgar because they're brushing up against some sort of restriction. So I think you're onto something. I want to make sure that there's time for people in the audience to ask questions. If you have questions, could you come up here so that Radu and Andrei can see your faces? And if you don't, I can keep going.
No need to come. No need to come. We don't need to see.
Well, you're in the front, so do you want to just look at them so they can see your face? They're
No,
behind. The
no,
camera's
don't.
behind you. Yeah.
Oh, no need to.
Hold on. Hi, Radu. It's really
Hello.
great. It's great to see you. The first time I saw your film was when I saw Bad Banging, and I was totally beyond words. And I started watching your films, and what I noticed about this particular, I guess, conglomeration of TikToks and your other films is how you use social media and sexuality and power structure to see the ridiculousness and also the beauty in human beings. I was wondering if you could speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. We hear very.
Okay.
And I even said thank you.
Well, there was a question there.
Oh, it was a question.
I guess I think he wanted you to comment on how you use social media to explore both the beauty and, did you say, the ridiculousness of human beings?
Oh, okay. That's yeah. Well, that's a very difficult topic, and I think it's difficult to answer in general lines, in general terms like that, because one can use those images or those films or whatever in different way for different purposes with different frames, and I did use them differently. But I really think I really have the stubbornness to consider that cinema can accommodate all kind of discourse, all kind of materials, all kind of images, sounds, text, and transform them into cinema again. So, from this point of view, the social media images, be it TikTok, be it YouTube, be it I don't know, Facebook or Reels or whatever, I think they can be reframed or reused or reconfigured, reappropriated like any materials. And I think cinema still has to learn. It's still unbelievable that I think it's after all the avant-garde and so on, it still has to learn more from painting or from visual arts like that. So I said at some point to Dennis Lim and to Devika that I'm so happy that my film Dracula is in the section Currents, because Currents is also the great works of Robert Rauschenberg, which took newspapers and make them a kind of collage, of course using them differently, but it's still a reappropriation of newspapers to create a work of art. So I said, well, I'm trying with my modest powers to do the same with cinema, to accept everything that comes, not judging from the outset, not judging a priori that something is superior, something is inferior, put them all together, and well, in the end, maybe we have something else, or at least we look at the things with different eyes. What happened, at least to me, from working on these films in the last years, using this kind of images or materials which are not noble, is that my taste for life somehow opened up, and my taste for seeing, I'm curious when I'm in an apartment of someone, I look at the things and I'm happy to see all kind of not important things. When I open the TV, I always find something interesting. When I open the internet, there's something interesting. When I in the street, everything becomes more interesting because my attention to everything, I think, is heightened, and my taste for life is heightened because of working with these materials considered garbage, usually.
There's another gentleman here who wants to ask a question.
All right, thanks. So you want me to turn around? Okay.
Just so they can see your face if you want. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, you mentioned a bunch of different aspects of TikTok and things that it can do. And I'm wondering, after doing this study, what do you think is the aspect that this presidential candidate that came out of nowhere most skillfully exploited? Was it the Fluxus aspect or what?
No, I think that's Donald Trump. I think Trump is really, really good in that. And actually, there was an article of Ian Buruma, I don't know, in an American platform, comparing Donald Trump with people like Lenny Bruce and these kind of insult artists. I think I think I would let Andrei answer this. I think he followed more the political aspect of the campaign, because in my opinion, it's mostly the propaganda, the Russian propaganda pushing these videos, and the mix of nationalism with homophobia and with anti-EU and anti-European thing that pushed that very high. But Andrei followed it more.
Okay, but what I could add to what you said was that I felt that it was also something related to loneliness, because there were a lot of, during that period, a lot of people who were filming themselves from all over Europe, maybe all over the world, who were working, and they seemed to be struggling where they were and unhappy with their lives, and they were alone in the videos. And together, through this media, they became, a group. I mean, they had certain songs, they had certain, they had certain symbols, they had certain slogans, they had certain, of course, maybe they were not their own, maybe they were, made by others with for propagandistic reasons, and they just took them out of naivety. But still, I think this functioned very well for a lot of people. And I think that a lot of people who use this TikTok, are not so active socially. They seem to live a lot through TikTok. Like, I don't know, a, a person who has a TikTok account and publishes regularly, they usually publish like 30 or 40 clips a day. Like, it's not because they're not elaborated. They just most of the times they just film themselves saying something or doing something. So I think this was also something that, for me at least, while watching the phenomenon, was part of it, was a big part of it. And I understand it very well on a human side, to be honest. Why this made them feel very powerful. They were crying out of happiness. I don't know if you know, but even the first tour of elections in the second round, that were in the end won not by the extreme right representative, but in the first round there was a big campaign on TikTok to get him elected since the first round with 50%, more than 50%. If he would have gotten more than 50% of the vote, there wouldn't have been a second round. And he only got 40%, but still it was a lot. And it was huge for a first round. It was like double the votes compared with the second candidate. So it was made the same, also it was based on creating this collectivity in a way, this collective spirit, collective
But
enthusiasm.
didn't you have the feeling that at some point it looked like a kind of psychosis, like a collective digital psychosis?
Of course, yes. Yes,
It
I
felt
had.
it felt insane. It felt like people lost their minds, and it was so becoming
I
huge and
completely
huge
agree.
and huge, while nothing was happening in the street or very little, but on
Yeah.
the screens, it felt like a revolution. It really felt psychotic, and everybody was. There were people crying. There were people taking I mean, we don't have guns like in US, but they would take their axes or the knives and said, "I'm coming to Bucharest to kill everybody," or
Yeah, like the guy with the dog, no, that we put in the video. No, he
Yeah,
seems a nice guy. If you look at him, he
yeah.
doesn't seem he has attention to his dog, but he was fanatical, in that video, in that period. And I have to say that in the beginning I was afraid, yes, when I started watching them, because it was a psychosis, yeah, and it continued to be like this for 6 months.
Yeah, people were destroying their papers. It was also another.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually, I think TikTok is a medium that gives to imitation. When something appears, for instance, a new song, and people do lip sync on this song, all of a sudden, then you will have not only one or two, but hundreds of thousands of people doing exactly the same thing. So I
yeah,
think that this mirroring effect or this kind of imitation effect is absolutely huge. It's like a snowball that gets very fast, very big, and you see that's why somehow it's boring, because sometimes you see the same song again and again and again, and one week after another song or another trend or another joke appears,
yeah,
and then this joke is staged by this could have been maybe another chapter, to show the same the same script, so to speak, the same kind of story staged in 100 ways. Because so I think that's why, because politically that's why it's so toxic, this platform and the algorithms in it, because all of a sudden it becomes the same very, very simple ideas can be repeated, that get a quotient of truthiness very big and very fast. Everybody believes because you only see that, you only hear this idea, and the opposite ideas. And especially because if you put money in TikTok, then it makes it even bigger. So you only see that. So this seems the only reality, I guess. So I think it's a lot of other aspects of the platform, the bad ones, so to speak.
And also, Radu, just to add something brief, all the people who work here that I met in Bucharest, working in marketing and promoting stuff, they almost only work with influencers from TikTok. So nowadays it became the biggest platform to promote everything, not only politics. It seems to be very efficient.
We see it even at Cannes. There's a lot of TikTok influencers on the red carpet, and yeah, it's. I want to get in one more question because we're very short on time. So if we could all keep it a bit concise, that would be helpful.
Do I need to move in a bit?
Yeah, if you want them to see you, that would be nice.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Anyway, you have a backlit, so we see your silhouette, but why not?
Let's keep it that way. My reaction to those videos was they were extraordinarily creative, inventive, and you was sort of mentioning how it sort of opened you up a little bit since you've started watching TikTok videos, more curious about the world. And then you talk about Romania having the lowest level of investment in education. And I was wondering, like, are you worried that if you put more money into education, you might have less interesting, more boring TikTok? I mean,
Well,
I say that in a glib sort of flip way, but I'm actually kind of serious. Like, is there a link between being educated and being a bit boring?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think, well, first of all, the result is that there's no worry about that because I think not even in 1,000 years things will change from this point of view. And it's true. Yeah, that's a question, actually. I think we didn't discuss it, Andrei, but I thought of that sometimes education comes also with a kind of refraining from some things that that are vulgar or idiotic. I mean, I don't imagine, for instance, if you remember that guy swimming in this small water in mud, and they put the Titanic, which I think it's a great performance. But if I think you really have to be. But I think the same question in different way was asked and answered by Jacques Rivette in several texts, and including in Claire Denis' film about Rivette called Rivette, Jacques Rivette, Le Veilleur. And Rivette at some point says, cinema at the beginning was very, very naive and very innocent. And like these TikTok videos. And it's true that cinema then grew into an art and whatever. And now, said Rivette, in order to get back to innocence, we just cannot make the way back like it is. We have, on the contrary, to make it from the other side. So I think there's maybe a truth into that, and the answer will be that if these things will happen, then maybe that's why we still need provocative artists or provocative people, or to accept a kind of dumbness that is considered a no-go zone. When I mentioned Fluxus a few times, it still comes in my mind. I mean, when you think about that concert with people poking penises through a paper wall, and that was the concert, so to speak. Well, that extreme dumbness, in quotes, dumbness, is something that connects us to these videos from the other side of educated people. So I'm not worried about that. I think if that will happen, we will need to, or there will always be people needing or wanting to go to this direction with different means.
And to just add something brief on that, don't you think, Radu, that I was thinking also about, I don't know, a lot of educated intellectuals that, I don't know, we had in our history, who I always felt that, when the trend in Europe was fascism, for example, in the 30s, okay, we were too, like as a majority, or yeah, but very special in a way. No, more eccentric, more in a way more crazier than everybody else in the, I don't know, in the orthodoxist views, in the, no, even intellectuals were part of this in a way. I don't know how to call it. It was more eccentric, you know, than in other parts of Europe. So I don't know if I could extract from that maybe there is something, no, Dadaist about Romanians in at a certain level, but
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, but partly, I think you're right because there is a culture that we grew up into, and all Romanians grew up into, which has a different name, which is a very funny sounding name in Romanian. It's called bășcălie, would be a kind of aggressive type of humor and
yeah,
an extreme type of humor that exists in our culture. So yeah, maybe somehow Romanian videos are more like that, but still, I think I don't know. I think it's I think education would change something for sure, and I hope it will happen, even if we get boring TikToks. But I don't think it will happen in this way. I always think there will be, or I hope there will be always people who are on the margin from different type of margins, if you want, and they will have the mean to express themselves. Usually, it was not through writing or through
yeah.
painting or whatever, like art brut or these kind of things. But I think now, as I said before, all these people in the margins can express themselves through these videos. Well, of course, the problem is that these are not forever. They are, of course, nothing is forever, but nobody's archiving, you know, this kind of materials. They just go. It's a kind of flow of creativity, a flow of ideas, flow of images, flow of
But
representations
maybe
that come
that's,
and
I
go.
mean, maybe that's part of it. Like the luxury of wasting time and not committing
Yeah,
something to posterity is maybe something that encourages a particular kind of silliness and creativity. I mean, I think
true,
being
true.
bored can sometimes lead to the, most creative
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
experiments.
because imagine that if you start making a video and think, would Dennis Lim and Devika Girish would appreciate that? You will say, well, maybe not. Maybe let's write a script for that.
Well, if Radu Jude sent it to us, we would have to. I'm afraid
Wow.
we do have to wrap here. But thank you, Radu. Thank you, Andrei. This was fantastic.
Thank
This
you.
was
Thank
like one
you.
of the best cinema experiences I've had at the festival. So thank you for your, I know you spent a lot of time on this. So thank you. I hope you get to show Little Poems and Prose elsewhere. We're very proud that we world premiered it. And thank you to this great audience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.